everyone. Thank you so much for joining us. I'm Anna Palmer, one of the founders and CEO of Punchbowl News. We thank you so much for joining us in person and on the live stream, and for C-SPAN for joining us this morning as well. For the creator economy, a conversation with Representative Beth Van Duyne. A big thank you to YouTube for partnering with us to make conversations like this possible. This morning's event is part of a much larger project. Punchbowl News has been diving into the creator economy over the past couple of months, looking at how creators are starting businesses, creating communities, whether they're in big towns, small cities, all over the U.S. It has been really, really impactful, and I encourage you to check out this project at punchbowl.news. This morning, I'm going to be talking news of the day and all things creator economy with Representative Van Duyne, and afterwards, I'm going to be joined on stage by Josh Blumenfeld, Senior Manager of Government Affairs and Public Policy, and creator Dr. Javoris Hollingsworth for a fireside chat. As always, you can find Punchbowl News on all social media at Punchbowl News, and we encourage you to share about this conversation. With that, I'd like to welcome Representative Van Duyne to the stage. Thank you so much, Congresswoman. Good morning.
Good morning.
All right. Well, thank you so much for joining us this morning. I want to start with some news of the day, as we always do. There's no shortage of things.
There's no news going on
For us to speak about. We are on day 28 of the government shutdown. House Republicans haven't been here. Committees aren't doing their work. We were talking about that backstage. You're one of the Republicans who've been saying it's time to come back to Washington. What's going on?
Well, you say we haven't been here. A lot of us actually have been here. A lot of us have a lot of work to do. The work that we do is not just on the floor, right? I mean, we're meeting with people, we're speaking. And one of the reasons why I came back this week was because of this event. This is important to me. This is important to my constituents. I wanted to make sure that I was here participating. But we have had a number of different meetings that we are conducting in the district and here. A lot of the work that we do has to do with constituent services, which right now it's rough. You know, when you've got people who are asking for passports, when you've got people who are needing help from SBA, and you're in the middle of a government shutdown, it's hard. So again, the House Republicans, we did our job. We got the bill passed. We got it kicked over to the Senate, and now we are in waiting mode.
Yeah, I mean, it looks like the military is going to miss another paycheck. Other federal workers, we saw one of the biggest federal worker unions come out saying, like, enough is enough. It's time to get back to work. Air traffic controllers, there's been stops in Texas and other places, just staffing shortages. What's going to get us out of this mess? It feels more stuck, honestly, than it did even a couple days into this.
I think what it's going to take? It's going to take some sensibility in the Senate to get the bill kicked back out. I don't think Democrats recognize what a gift horse was given to them with a clean CR that they had already voted on a number of times, over a dozen times. This was a spending bill that was set levels during the Biden administration. A lot of us on the Republican side of the aisle did not want to vote for a clean CR. It's something we thought about, for a number of years, and convincing some of us that we needed to do that was a short gap measure. So it's kind of like where we entered the negotiation. This is our bottom line. We're going to send this to you because we think that this is something that you're going to support. And then on top of that saying, no, we're not going to. And not only are we not going to, but by the way, if you want our support, it's going to be another $1.5 trillion worth of spend. And then we're going to take all these things that you were able to pass in your working families and tax cut bill, and we're going to try to erase that and act like it never happened. If you're concerned with getting the government back open, we need to have about 10 members in the Senate, 10 Democrats say, you know what, we're going to vote to open the government back up. And hopefully, some of the pressure that they're getting, starting from the largest employee union, saying enough of the political theater, let's get the government open back up. Hopefully that will work.
All right, I have one more question, then we're going to get to the creator economy. But I do want to talk about 2026. You represent a district in Texas. President Donald Trump has made it ground zero for the Republican effort to make big changes in the 2026 map to try and favor Republicans. What's your take on that effort? And do you worry at all? One of the things we've talked a lot about on our podcast is whether we're just going to be in a constant state of redistricting. And can members even get to know their district if every year and a half to 2 years you're representing different cities and different counties?
Yeah. So this will be the third district. This is my third term, right? And this will be my third district that I've represented. So when I came in Congress, I was in one of the more challenging districts. My opponent spent about $17 million against me. Still lost, but it was a tight race. In fact, it was the only district in Texas that a Republican won in Congress in a district that Biden won. So I outperformed Trump by about 25,000 votes. On what's going on right now, I think you're seeing that the census was, I've got a bill actually that would have us redo the census. It's been admitted that there was a lot of miscounts. And where those miscounts were in Republican states, we were undercounted, and in large blue states, they were overcounted. And so already I would argue that there's a disparate number of seats that should have been held by Republicans that are now in Democrat hands simply because we miscounted the census. So I'm looking forward to getting back to work and getting some of these bills passed. But you know what Texas is doing, when you look at the percentage of voters that we've got that are Democrats versus Republicans, the number of seats that we have, it's a lot more fair than what we have seen in other areas of the country, like Massachusetts, like California, which are ridiculously gerrymandered to create more Democrat seats. And, you know, I didn't want to change my district. I liked my district. I had the best district in the country. But I also recognize the fact that most people can't name their Congress member, and that, you know, the work that I do, we encompass all of North Texas, not just the areas where my lines are. We help people with all sorts of, you know, whether or not it's people who are trying to get into our academies, or it's our youth council. You know, we have a number of folks that we help regardless. So we work with all the mayors, we work with all the chambers, we work with all the state reps and a lot of the businesses there, and they don't really know where their congressional lines cross. But it would be great if I could actually have one district and get to know all my constituents, have them get to know our office.
Yeah, absolutely. All right. Well, let's shift to the reason we're here, the creator economy. I want to start kind of from ground zero here. How did you first understand the creator economy concept? We're going to talk about some of your work on the caucus and other things, but you know, this is, for some people, they're not as tuned in or don't maybe know what the creator economy is.
Well, first of all, and I wanted to make sure I got some numbers here to say how huge it is, but do I understand it? Probably no, and that's why we created the caucus, is we don't know what we don't know. And what we're hoping is, as lawmakers, a lot of laws that we put into place have unintended consequences that the industry understands, that we as lawmakers don't, because we're not in that industry. And again, as lawmakers, we're expected to know, you know, this much about, but only about this deep. And so having the creators actually be part of what we're doing, making sure that before we've got tax policies that are going to affect you, or policies that deal with making the internet a safer place. You know, some of these things sound really good when you start talking about them, but what down the line, when they're actually, you know, you put those bills into law, what does that look like? And so getting upfront that information from the creators, I think, is really important, especially when you consider that was $1.7 billion, the influencer marketing was $1.7 billion in 2016, but it's expected to go to $32.55 billion in global marketing size by 2025. That since the pandemic, we have had an estimated 165 million new creators just since the pandemic globally. As of 2024, the global creator economy is currently worth $200 billion, and it's expected to hit $500 billion in just the next few years. So I think when we start thinking about the massive influence that that economy has, the number of people that are employed, and the amount of information that they're being able to send. And we were laughing this morning. I'm not going to give his story away, but one of the panelists that's going to be with you in right after mine, he's got 6 million followers, and you've got a cool kids show that provides kids content. Okay, compare that to the Speaker of the House that's got 1 million. Okay.
Got some work to do. That's what we were learning this morning.
We got to work on our content. We got to work on our content.
All right. Well, we have been featuring creators across the country for the past several months, and including the CEO of Dude Perfect, which is based in Texas. You visited the studio during their grand opening. Like, bring us behind the scenes. What was that like? A lot of us have seen the trick shots or kind of the contests that they do. Certainly, if you've got kids or you've been following it for a while, what was that like?
I'm so embarrassed. So I have a 23-year-old son, and a 23-year-old son who is now adulting. So he's graduated college, and he's working at home, and he's working for a consulting company. He's on his computer like 3 days at home. You know, they do work. And I went into his room, and I'm like, hey, I'm going to this place in Frisco. I said, Dude Perfect, have you heard of it? I'd never heard of it. And he just about lost his mind. He was like, Mom, how could you not have heard about it? And so I started like looking, investigating it. And it is amazing. They've got, you're talking about 6 million, awesome, compared to the speaker, 1 million. They have 60 million followers. They've had billions and billions of views. And I'm like, holy cow. So I've started like look into them. This is just a group of kids in A&M who just started doing some fun trick shots, right? And catching it on camera and putting it up. And this was obviously content that people wanted to watch. And they're just such a great group of guys that they're spiritual, they're community focused. It's great content for young kids and families. And so I went up there, and their place is amazing. It's like 80,000 square feet and right in the middle of Frisco, brand new. All of these places, they've got slides that come down. They've got it's not a basketball play. It's not just a basketball court, but it's like a 2-story basketball court because they want to be able to do trick shots from above and coming down. It's an incredible display, I think, of what happens. They've got 35 people right now that they employ. It's a tremendous opportunity that they've got to even grow beyond what they have right now. I mean, you just think of where they started. And it really opened my eyes to, holy cow, this grew over just a few years. This is content that people are starving for, and this is the result of it. I mean, it's a massive industry.
In some ways, it's such a disruptor, right? When you think about kind of typically you would think, oh, that's going to be in Hollywood. It's going to be in New York, right? I mean, talk a little bit about the creator economy as an economic engine in your district. I think about Dude Perfect as a really good example, right? Employing 35 people. But I mean, they have very big ambitions, right? They're not stopping with just like trying to do one trick shot and get a bunch of views and clicks. Like, I mean, they've really productized in a way that's really impressive.
Well, you think about, so what is it, 99% of these people do this as a second career, right? There's a very small percentage that actually full-time make this, but the fact that you've seen such a growth in this market just in the last 5 years alone, I just listed some of the numbers and the billions of dollars that we're talking about. There's a great, I mean, this is the second, no, I think it's actually number one for like product placement now, right? You think about the influence that it has and what the next steps can be. But the fact is that you are totally recreating content. You're not having to go through Hollywood. You're not having to go through, editor boards, producers. You're able to take this content and go, that's pretty cool, and just go boop, and it's out. It's up there. And that's the way everybody is starting to focus. I mean, even when you start thinking about the mass media, they're just putting things out there, seeing what clicks, what doesn't, and getting feedback and being able to change on a dime and being very responsive. But the influence that this industry has on products, on thought, on what's cool and what's not, it's a tremendous amount of power. And again, we want to make sure that we are not limiting the growth of that industry. It's a global industry, but right now almost a third are from the U.S. And we want that to be able to proliferate. We want it to be able to grow. We want more people to be able to be employed in it because these are tiny businesses. Some are making this as the only way that they are actually able to pay the rent, able to pay their mortgage. We want them to be able to be successful in that. But we also recognize that some of it does need to be angled that it's safe content, that we want our kids, we want our families watching it. And because it could be dangerous out there. I mean, anybody with kids who's seen some of the stuff that they're pulling down, but you don't want to overregulate it. And I think sometimes we as lawmakers are so excited about getting a name on a bill, we don't think about it. We need to do this in a very cautious manner. And again, I would, a note to all of the creators that are out there, let us know. I mean, call my office. vandyne.house.gov. We've got a form to fill out specifically meant for for creators. Some of the things that you think would be helpful, is it tax policy? Some of the things that you think would be harmful that we're looking at, again, regulating the internet and how you put information out there. But let us know and engage. And I know it can be kind of ugly engaging with politicians. I get it. I understand. I've been there. But it can also prevent a whole lot of damage in the future from happening. So engage with us. Yvette Clarke has been great. She's our co-caucus chair on the Democrat side. We've got over a dozen members right now in the House that are part of this caucus. A lot more want to, but they also want to see what we're doing. So I'm going to be contacting a number of the creators. If you want to have a conversation with our office, let us know. But we really want to get your insight on what's important and what we can do to be able to help.
Yeah, talking about, hearing and getting feedback. Last month, the House Small Business Committee held a hearing focused on creators. What was your biggest, one or two takeaways from that hearing?
That a lot of people, their help that they want from the government is to stay out of the way. Honestly, but they want to be able to have the freedom to be able to post what they want and not have to worry about it. The other problem they've got is the majority of you have shared with us that the biggest headache they have is on the tax side and dealing with how to work with the federal government. The revenue that you make is not regular. It's not like you're getting a paycheck every month. It ebbs and it flows depending on who is paying you or if you're getting paid that month, depending on what time of year it is for some of you. So, but the biggest headache is having to deal with government regulations. That was a big takeaway for us. So again, having that hearing really is to engage those folks in that industry to come and tell us what those headaches are. The biggest thing that you can do is to put a name on a face. Put a face on a name, put a face on this industry, to put a specific problem that you have and let us know how we can fix it. Because it's not going to be all encompassing. It's not going to be one size fits all bill on these. Again, there's people who have 6 million followers, people who have 60 million followers, people who have 20 followers. It's their family and friends that are looking at what they're doing. And each of you is going to have a different problem, a different solution. So again, engaging us and coming to DC, coming and speaking in front of a congressional committee can be very intimidating, but they did a great job.
All right, you brought some numbers. I also brought some numbers. The Oxford Economics put out some really interesting state-focused data recently, and in Texas, they found that 90% of users report using YouTube to gather information and knowledge. 73% of users agree that YouTube provides equal opportunities for everyone to learn and grow. And 56% of users agree that they value YouTube's ability to hear them from creators in their local community, so to be able to share with their local area. What do you take away from stats like that? As you say, this is massive, right? It's easy to talk about just this overarching global industry, but when you double click into Texas, those are some pretty significant numbers of kind of just users that are also kind of using these platforms.
Yeah, well, no, absolutely. And, everything's bigger and better in Texas. So those numbers come as no surprise.
I fed you right into that one.
Any Texans in the audience? How do you know somebody's from Texas? Because they'll tell you. No, it doesn't surprise me. But what we've seen, newspapers are kind of going the way of the dodo bird, and people who are following, politics, people who are going to city council meetings, trying to find access to that information now, if you're relying on your local paper, is really hard. Nobody's really carrying it. But you look at what the content creators, you can find people that are following all of that.
Right.
That information is out there. Now, sometimes it's biased, most times it's biased, but I would argue that the papers are biased as well. So the more content that you have, I think the clearer picture of what's happening in your communities. And so, yeah, you're getting people who are doing things at the local level, you're getting people who are doing things in marketing, people who are looking at foreign policy, but you're putting your opinions out there. And in order to be successful, You have to have content that people actually want to watch. In order to make money on it, you've got to be able to actually turn and force people to be able to get influenced by you, that they are actually doing something, whether or not that's purchasing a product or clicking on a button or hitting a like. All of that is coming down to the local level. And I love the fact that we've got so many folks in Texas who are doing that, because it is really making, I think, a very compelling case how we need to get behind this industry, support it, and be able to look at the next generation what it's going to be.
We are almost out of time, but I have two last questions for you. And one you kind of hit on, but I just want to make sure that we kind of double click on it here, which is what Congress can do, right? So you have the Creators Caucus, you're hearing from them, you're kind of a call to arms of saying, let us know what you need, what you don't need. It sounds like tax policy is probably an area where you think there could be some activity. Anything else that you're really
Tax
focused
policy,
on?
but also looking at small business. You know, we have those folks in front of the small business because they are small businesses. What is some of the help that our Small Business Administration can provide? You know, is it access to loans? Is it, legal questions? Growing a small business and having, various forums to discuss how to build this. You know, how did you start? You know, what would you suggest? So ways that we can actually help create, and ways of not destroying.
Last question. Obviously, we've talked a lot about creators, how the industry is growing, but project forward for us, right? Like I always love to look like into the future, into the crystal ball of it all. What do you see for creators in your district 5 years from now?
I think it's going to be more defined. I think it's going to be similar to a marketplace, almost like the retail industries grew. You're going to have people who are very well known, and they're going to be looking to mentor other folks. And I think you're going to start to see that grow out. Oh, so where did you start? And then you're going to name my name and do perfect. And I got influenced by them, and then we kind of started growing from there. So I think what you're going to see is you've got the people who are on the ground floor right now. They're going to be building larger footprints, and they're going to see folks kind of following that. But I don't think you're ever going to see the content creators across the board that are the small mom and pops, the teenagers who are putting content out there. I don't think you're ever going to see that stop.
An incubator system. Very interesting. All right, everybody, let's give Representative Van Duyne a hand. Thank you so much for joining us this morning. Really appreciate it. All right, we're going to do a quick set change, but what an interesting and engaging conversation, thinking about the creator economy, what's happening in Texas, do perfect, but then also really interesting to think about kind of what's next, right? I think whether it's in Congress, tax policy, certainly the small business angle of it, what Congress can do to try to help creators, as well as thinking about this kind of incubation system that she just talked about. With that, really excited because we are going to continue with a fireside chat. I'm going to, in 1 minute, welcome Josh Blumenfeld, Senior Manager, Government Affairs and Public Policy, and creator, Dr. Javoris Hollingsworth. We're going to talk to him about Gracie's Corner and what we have seen there. So, gentlemen, why don't you come up to the stage? Thank you so much. All right. Mr. Hollingsworth, thank you. Here we go. Oh, of course, come please sit. All right. Well, we heard a lot and covered a ton of ground with Representative Van Duyne, but Josh, I want you to set the stage for us. We heard her talk about the impact of the creator economy that's had in her district, certainly in Texas, but zoom out for us a bit. From YouTube's perspective, how do you define the creator economy? Because it can kind of be an amorphous title, meaning something different to everyone. And what's the real life impact it's having on the broader economy?
Yeah, well, I really appreciate that question because foundational to YouTube is a very unique business model, which is that our creators take 55% of the revenue and we take 45% of the revenue of all the ads that run on the platform, which means that, yes, you can sell merch and you can be an influencer and you can have a deal with a company, but fundamentally it's actually in the content creation that drives your revenue. And so that is a very unique system. It's been the bargain that we've had with our creators since YouTube started. And we think it's really what has powered the engine of the creator economy. Just to add on some facts, over the last 4 years, YouTube has paid out $1 billion to creators. So this is a significant professional workforce. And as the Congresswoman was noting, we think one of the really exciting pieces of this is that, yes, people are full-time creators. It's how they make their living, but they're also part-time creators. And when they do that, typically they're also growing a business. They're going it vertically. So they have a baking show, but they also have a brick and mortar bake shop, right? And so YouTube is the ad revenue. It drives traffic. It drives people to their website. So it is really a dynamic platform that is helping people grow their own businesses. And we're really proud of that.
All right, Dr. Hollingsworth, you are a Georgia native and co-creator and executive producer of Gracie's Corner and proud father of its star, Gracie Hollingsworth. Talk a little bit about kind of the genesis of Gracie's Corner, maybe for some that might not have, not one of your 6 million followers. How did this all get started?
So for us, it started during the pandemic. So I was one of those creators that kicked off during that time. And the way it happened was I started off, I was a chemistry professor. Organic chemistry? Any people? No. Anyway, so I was a chemistry professor, my wife a psychology professor, and pandemic happens, everything shuts down. We're working from home, teaching remotely, via Zoom, you name it. And we had little ones, and we had to try to keep those guys occupied while we were doing our daily tasks. So I'm sure many of you had the same struggle. But one of our go-to babysitters was YouTube. So with YouTube, though, we had a chance to really look at a lot of the content that they were consuming. And one of the things that stood out for us was that there really weren't too many programs out there that featured or starred children of color. So for us, that was a bit of a concern because we feel like, when we look at society, it's this amazing melting pot of different cultures, different backgrounds. But sometimes in the media, it's not always presented that same way. So we took the proactive approach and we created Gracie's Corner. Again, the beauty of something like YouTube is that if you have the idea, you can just put it out there, and we did that. And fast forward, now we're a thriving business with close to 6 million subscribers.
Yeah, I mean, so in the middle of COVID, you're not seeing any contact with backgrounds like your daughters. Talk about how important it was. I mean, would you think part of it resonates with Gracie's Corners because it is a place for all voices?
I really do think so. It was, for us, it was initially a labor of love because that first year or so, I think it was like family members and friends who were watching. But with time, it just continued to grow. And I think it was because of the fact that it was resonating with so many families where people were now starting to feel like, okay, I feel seen. And then the music is fun and whatnot too. I try not to toot my own horn, but yeah.
I mean, and you learned some new skills along the way too, right? I mean,
Yes.
it stars your daughter, but you also, I mean, you weren't teaching organic chemistry anymore. You're an animator. You're doing music. I mean, talk about that a little bit.
That was crazy turn for me. Like going to graduate school and doing all these different things to get to that point in my career where now I'm a professor, tenure track, and all this fun stuff, and then essentially walking away from all of it. I didn't know it was going to go that direction, but with the learning aspect of it, it's so funny using YouTube to learn a lot of different aspects that we utilize today, because I didn't know about mixing and mastering and all these different things. But like now, the business has grown to where I can actually delegate others to do those things. But it was a crazy learning curve though initially.
I bet. Josh, YouTube put out an economic impact report recently. Share with us some of the big stats. We heard from the Congresswoman. I pulled out some stats as well earlier today. But how do you connect them to creators like Dr. Hollingsworth?
Yeah, well, I really appreciate that question because I think part of what underlies YouTube, the magic of YouTube and the creator economy, is that in many respects it is about the future of work, right? And it is about the American dream. And one version of that is that, okay, everyone wants to be famous and they want to have a YouTube channel. But the second version of that, and I think the more powerful version of that, is that it's about agency, it's about autonomy, and it's about authenticity, right? It's about working when you want and where you want and how you want. It's about your authentic voice and creating the kind of content you want. There's no editors. You don't have to go through checks. You can just put your content out, and then you can sort of work how you want and live in the place that you want to live. If you want to pick up your kids from school, you can film in the morning. So it's not to say that there aren't enormous pressures on content creators, but I think it is part of why that economy is growing and why people want to do it is because they want control over their own life. And I think this is part of the future of work, both in the United States and around the world. And frankly, to Javoris's great point, it's a place for all voices where whether you're a first-time user Right? YouTube doesn't tell you what color you have to be, what language you have to speak, where in the country you have to come from, what story you have to tell. Everybody has access to it. And I think that scale is quite powerful.
Yeah, I mean, talk about that evolution, right? Because you often have individual creators that maybe are making content for their family or trying it out, or, maybe it's more of a test case scenario, but then they kind of evolve from being personalities into what you all call creator entrepreneurs.
Yeah, so it is also a really interesting evolution to watch how creators grow on the platform. And I think probably if you ask most creators, they would probably be surprised, like Javoris, that actually it took off. Very few of them set out to be the Mr. Beast. They set out to do something that they wanted to do. I think one of the other interesting elements of YouTube is that you can learn so much from it. So while you're learning to be a creator, you can actually learn on the platform itself and then put your content out. I think the other thing that's really unique about our scale and our global scale is that niche content, or content that we would think would be niche, actually has wide audiences. Because if you have 2 billion monthly users, and if we have auto dubbing and auto translating in hundreds of languages, there's no barrier to access. And because it's free for everyone everywhere in the world, all they need is an internet connection. And so now your sort of niche content is actually wildly popular because you have an audience around the world. And then what we do is we give creators the back end analytics so that they can look at their content and then figure out what's popular and where are my viewers and what time of day are they watching and what really took off and what didn't and what part of this video was successful. So, right, because we're a rev share, we have a stake in the success of our creators. We want them all to succeed. And so we give them the tools that they can then use to do a better job and to make their channels really sing.
Yeah, I want to talk a little bit more about that. Like, talk about the tools that you all have when it comes to the YouTube Partner Program, how you're enabling them to kind of create sustainable businesses on the platform.
Right. So as I mentioned, it's a rev share, right? So the creators get 55% of the revenue. We take 45% of their ad revenue. We have 10 other ways that they can monetize through merch. And then one of the other, I think, really unique advantages is we have what are called partner managers. So we have thousands of YouTubers across the world who work with channels to help them do a better job. And so they're almost, think of them as sort of in-house talent agencies, in-house managers who help with analytics, who help with PR. And again, because we have a shared stake in the success of our creators, our incentives are set up for them to do really well, right? And look, the advent of AI it can be scary and can be disruptive. We think AI is going to empower creators and not replace them, and it will help them do things that were really sort of difficult menial tasks like selecting a background or translating content. So we want to really turbocharge what we call like the creator studio, so that way they can have the tools and the expertise from us to really empower their channels.
Javoris, your content has received many awards, which I'm sure is amazing, but what has that recognition meant for you and your family?
It means a lot to us, just because, again, this was a labor of love for us. We never set out to start a business or have any type of cultural impact, but to receive recognition is always huge because we're still this small family-owned business, like almost mom and pop shop, right? But it's so cool to see us on these major award stages against Nickelodeon, Disney, all these. Sorry if any of you guys in the room, but with these major, studios and actually winning in a lot of these cases, and it's like, man, it just goes to show you how powerful such a platform or opportunity is.
Well, and you've also had success in building partnerships with brands. I think it's important. I mean, we heard Josh talk a lot about, how can it be the rev share, but then you can build really big, businesses. Can you talk a little bit how you've navigated that? What products are we talking about? And how do you make sure you keep that authentic feel? Because I think one of the things that is really important as you see some of these businesses grow, and yours as well, is that authenticity continues.
Yeah, it's presented a lot of opportunities for us, especially with just remaining authentic to what we've created. For instance, we've had a plush doll that launched in Walmart. We have had books that we just recently partnered with HarperCollins on, 2 books that recently released. We just finished a 8-city tour. So that was really cool for me because it's interesting to see the YouTube numbers when you look at the analytics and the dashboard and whatnot, but to actually see people in seats and interacting with them, that was a whole new element. But to gain their trust, especially on a platform like YouTube, to really get them to the point where they say, okay, you know what, I see that you are doing this thing, it's positive, I like it, I'll make this purchase or I'll do this thing. So it just kind of continues to grow. But yeah.
We are almost out of time, but before I let you go, I'm going to start with you, Doris, and then we'll let you have the last word. What's the one thing you hope the audience in person and watching on the live stream take away from the conversation today?
I just want to encourage anyone who's interested in being a content creator to go for it. For us, it was really, again, a labor of love. It was something that we believed in and felt like there was a need for. For others, it might just be a fun hobby. But yeah, just do it. That's my big thing.
I like it.
Well, I would just follow up on the eloquent remarks of the Congresswoman, which is that because YouTube is a home for all voices, because of the size and scale, because it's a conglomerate of all of these tens of thousands of small businesses, it's a really important part of the economy. And creators have real questions and real challenges about how they operate economically, how they operate legally, how they pay their taxes, how they get access to loans. And so I would hope that policymakers in particular would think about this as the future of work and about how we empower creators and make life easier for them and encourage them.
All right, we're going to leave it there. Thank you both so much for joining me, and a big
you.
thank you to Rep. Van Duyne for coming to Washington this week, and to YouTube for partnering with us to make this conversation and the larger project possible. I really do encourage you to check it out. There's some really great features of different businesses of all sizes and places in the U.S. You can go to punchbowl.news and check that out. Thanks so much. Have a great day and stay safe, everybody.